Welcome to the Galvanic Applied Sciences tutorial series. In this video we will show how to set up global alarms. For information on how to physically connect to the analyzer, please check the 903 wiring book, which is found on the CD or in the 903 GUI software under the help menu. After you have started the 903 software and logged on, go to the global page. The global tab shows parameters that affect all four analyzer streams and their respective types of gas runs: H2S, total sulfur, reference 1 and 2, calibration, and 0, as well as the general parameters unaffiliated with the actual analysis. There are 13 different global alarms you can configure. Each alarm has a horizontal row of options. The 13 different alarms include sensor LED current. If the sensor current rises above the setpoint value, the alarm is triggered as there is likely a problem with the sensor block. The setpoint for this alarm is configured at the factory and should not be changed. The high temperature alarm will be triggered if the temperature experienced by the sensor block's onboard temperature sensor exceeds the setpoint value in degrees Celsius. Low temperature alarm will be triggered if the temperature experienced by the sensor block's onboard temperature sensor goes below the setpoint value in degrees Celsius. RTC battery. The battery alarm will be triggered if the voltage from the onboard clock battery, which maintains the analyzer's real-time clock should the power fail, drops below a hard-coded value. Maximum tape advance. This alarm will be triggered if the motor advances the tape more than a certain number of rotations without getting a corresponding signal from the pulse counter that controls the tape advance. If this alarm triggers, it will generally indicate a problem with the encoder. The length of the maximum tape advance can be set by the user, but it is advised to leave the set at the factory default. The sensor communications alarm is an alarm that triggers if the unit is no longer able to communicate between the motherboard and the sensor block. If this triggers, the unit will no longer function correctly. Low tape. The 903 can be configured with an optional optical low tape sensor. If this alarm is triggered, it means the tape is very low and should be replaced. The low tape alarm should be installed. It is triggered when there is approximately 15 feet of tape remaining on the reel. Tape length. A low tape alarm can also be triggered based on the amount of tape that is calculated to be remaining by the pulse counter. This alarm will trigger when the length of tape calculated to be remaining in feet drops below the number set in this field. For this alarm to work correctly, it is essential the length of tape in the reel be reset to the correct length value in the global screen whenever a tape is replaced. Tape movement. If the pulse counter no longer receives any pulses when the tape is advanced, this alarm is triggered. Tape movement and maximum tape advance alarms may be triggered by the same problem, so both should be analyzed. Possible causes of a tape movement alarm include tape breakage, jamming of the encoder, and motor failure. Sensor calibration. If the 903 is unable to adjust the detector output to 1000 mV on white tape, even after raising the sensor current to the maximum allowable value, this alarm will be triggered. This alarm will typically be triggered if the tape does not move correctly and the stain becomes exceptionally dark before the next analysis begins, or if there is no tape present. Bypass mode is a mode of the analyzer that disables any outputs that may be triggered by alarms. This mode is useful for doing any kind of service work that may result in accidental triggering of alarms. For normal operation, it is essential bypass mode be disabled. When bypass timeout is enabled by putting a check mark in the enable box, bypass mode will automatically be exited by the analyzer after a certain number of seconds after the last keypad button push. Length of the bypass timeout in seconds can be set by the user in the bypass timeout field. By default, this is set to 450 seconds and is disabled. When the 903 is in bypass mode, the output from both analog outputs goes to the failsafe output to ensure the user recognizes the analyzer is in bypass mode. AC power tells you AC power is present. DC power tells you DC power is present. To edit configuration for a specific alarm, you have to uncheck the alarm in the enabled field. For example, to set relay 4 to activate when the tape length is less than 30 feet, uncheck tape length in the enabled field. This will allow you to edit the fields for the alarm. Under the limit next to tape length, type 30. And check the field for relay 4. Re-enable the alarm by checking tape length. Push the temporary right to analyzer button and the permanent right to analyzer button to complete the process. Use the same procedure when configuring the rest of the global alarms. This concludes the How to Set Up Global Alarms tutorial.